Hello and welcome. In this video I'm going to show you how to make a silver bar necklace. So these are very trendy and you can do them in different styles with different textures, but they're also a great project for beginners if you're new to making silver jewellery because there's no soldering and they're quite simple and straightforward to do. So over here you can see some of the samples. This is a straightforward silver bar necklace, really nice shiny bar piece, and they're very popular. And I'm also going to show you how to do the texturing. So we're going to use some hammers to do some texturing. And of course you can see from these that you can use different sizes, different widths and different lengths. So it all depends on what design you most like. So to start off with, I'm going to use a piece of sheet silver. And I've ordered this piece. It is 0.8 millimeters thick. You could also go for a 1 mil thick piece as well. It's entirely up to you how chunky you want the piece to be, but I'd say 0.8 or 1 mil is great for this project. That's the thickness of the sheet. Then this is measured 8 millimeters long, so it's not quite a centimeter in terms of the height. And the length I had the long strip, but this is about 10 centimeters. So you can either use the same as me or you can get a slightly different one. So the first stage is I'm going to measure up how long I want my bar necklace to be. And I tend to find that about 4 centimeters is a really nice length. So I'm just going to mark at the top and at the bottom of my piece. And just draw a little line. Great, so next up I'm going to saw this. So I'm going to take it over to my bench peg. And if you don't have a jeweler's bench, you can use a clamp-on bench peg as well. And I'm going to take my jeweler's saw. So we put a saw blade in the last video. I'm just going to show you it really quickly again, just in case you missed it. So this is my jeweler's saw frame. I've got my saw blade. I'm going to very carefully rub my finger over to get an idea if it's the right direction. Place it in one end, the bottom end, and tighten, and then just apply pressure to make it tight. And I normally tighten it again, so I normally do a double tightening. Just check that I've got a nice ping. There we go. Now I'm ready to go. So I'm going to support my piece with one hand and I'm just going to saw straight down, remembering again that I'm not pushing hard on my saw blade. Don't worry if you break a saw blade, it's really normal to do. I remember my first silver jewelry class, I think I broke about 10 saw blades. So don't beat yourself up over it, just put a new one in and start again. It's great practice for how to apply them. And so I'm just going to go ahead and get started. The first couple of movements are quite tricky. So I normally put my thumb just right next to where I want to cut and just do the first couple downwards, just to make a little groove for myself. And then I can go ahead and saw. So I'm not applying any pressure, I'm just going up and down with the saw. I want to try and use the full length of the blade, and I want to make sure that my fingers are well and truly out of the way because it is sharp. Wonderful. So then the end will come off. And I've got a nice piece to work with there. So we need to file it, sand it, do all those bits and pieces, but I like to drill my holes and do my texturing first. So if I want a plain bar, then I'm not going to do any texturing. I'm going to go straight into drilling my holes. But if you do want some texturing, I'm just going to show you how to do that up next. So I've got my sandbag and my steel block, and I'm going to place my piece on top of there. If you don't have a sandbag, you can still do it. It's just going to be a little bit noisier. Then there's all different ways that you can texture your piece. There's different hammers that you can use. I'm going to go ahead and use this hammer, which has a kind of slightly pointed end, which is going to give some lines and grooves into my piece. There are special texturing hammers that you can use, and it's really nice to get a piece of copper and just play around with different textures that your hammers and tools make and see if there are any that you really like that you'd like to use. So once I've decided which one, I'm just going to go ahead and hammer the piece up and down to give a bit of texture to it. You can see it's started doing that. I've got some lines on that piece and keep going. And just keep looking at your progress as you go along and work out what other things you might want to do. Now you may notice that my piece is kind of curved a little bit. That's absolutely fine. I'm just going to use my rawhide mallet to straighten it out. So I just turn it over. And often when your silver comes, it has a blue film on it. So you can always take that off at this stage. And do make sure you always take it off before soldering, because otherwise you get some plastic fumes in your solder. Great, so now I'm ready to drill it. When you do texture your piece, it does disshape it a little bit, but we're going to use our files and our sanding to clean that up afterwards. So the next stage is to drill 2 holes. So I like to first of all decide where I want my holes to go and just do a little mark. With these pieces, if you're making them as a necklace, it's a nice idea to have the holes in the corner. If I wanted to make this as part of a bracelet, then I'd probably do the hole in the middle on each side. Or if I wanted to hang it the other way and have it as a pendant going down, I could do a hole just in the middle on one side. So choose where you want your holes to go and mark them out with a pen. Then next up, I'm going to use something called a center punch to make a little mark where I want my holes to go before I put the drill in. So if I go straight in with the drill might slip around a little bit. So making a punch first is a really good idea. So I'm just going to place it there, take my hammer and just do one firm push. 1 or 2. Same on the other side. That just gives it a really little mark so that I can then put my drill in. Then if you're using a pin vise, just place your drill into the area. This one's a swivel pin vise, so I can put my hand on the top and just swivel down, applying some pressure, and I'm going to keep going till we're through. Now with silver, it does take a while to drill through silver in this way. So if you get frustrated with it after a while, you might want to invest in a bigger drill type, either a bow drill or an electric drill. So if you're doing lots of these, then you might want to do that. But to get started, this is a nice, easy way to go for it. So it might take you quite a few minutes to get through, but you're just going to do it on one side, then the other, and I'll see you on the other side of that. Wonderful, so I've drilled through my 2 holes, so I've got those all done, and now I'm ready to start filing the piece. And you can see, because I've textured it, it's slightly disshapen, so I want to make it nice and rectangular again. So I'm going to take my cut 2 file, and this is D-shaped, but you could use flat as well, and I'm just going to start filing the piece. So I support it on the bench, and I'm going to go in a straight line, again always just in the one direction. And I think with filing, half of the battle is just believing that it's going to work, because sometimes when you're working with silver, it can take a bit of time. And just knowing that, keep at it, and you'll get the nice straight line you're aiming for. And I'm going to go to the sides as well and do those. And because it's very sharp, I'm just going to nip over the edges So where I've got my edges, I'm just gonna, I don't want to round them. That's a different design. You can actually do that. So at this stage, if you wanted round edges, you could curve, but I'm just gonna do a slight nip just to make sure it's not sharp. And all the while I'm filing, I'm thinking, if I'm wearing this, is this gonna be comfortable? Are there any sharp edges? And if so, this is the time to get rid of them. And I also tend to file just slightly on the edge of each side because they're a little bit sharp as well. So just do a little file on each side. And keep going round. It can seem a bit tedious, but it's really worth spending the time to make the piece look professional at this stage, because this will make the difference between a piece that looks really handmade and a piece that looks really professional but still is handmade, which is what we're going for. So patience, and try and enjoy the process of refining your piece and making it very professional. Once I'm happy with that, I'm going to move on to some sanding paper. So I've got 800 grade. You could start with a thicker one, which is 400, but I find that this works quite well for this project. So I'm just going to go over where I've filed and just use my sandpaper, just make it a little bit softer again. I'm not doing too much on the texture because I want to keep that nice and textured. And sometimes the point where I've drilled has a little bit of a beveled edge, so I'm just going to go over that as well on the back. And you can use loose sandpaper for this, or you could use an emery stick, whatever feels most comfortable for you. I'm just sanding the back of the piece. The back of the piece is a little textured as well because some of the texture kind of comes through. So you can either keep it like that or you can file it down to get off any texture and then make it a mirror finish. Great, and then we're ready to polish the piece. So I'm a big fan of polishing papers. These are papers that come in different colours which relate to the different grades. We start with the green and we work our way down. So how I normally do it is I place it on my bench peg or on a table and just rub backwards and forwards firmly. And I want to do this quite hard and quite fast to get a good effect. Then when I lift up, it's kind of starting to polish. Because it's a textured piece, it's going to polish the top more than the crevices, but that will help it to stand out more, which is quite a nice effect. If you wanted all the bits polished, you'd be better off putting it in a barrel polish. We'll go on to the next one. And I'm going to run through these quite quickly. If I was making a piece and I wanted it really shiny, I'd spend about a minute or two on each one. But just for speed in the video, I'm just going to run through them quickly for you. By the pink stage, they say we should start to see a real shine, almost like a mirror finish. So if you get to that stage and you can't see that, you need to go back and start again. Because with polishing, it's all about removing scratches and any imperfections from the surface. And if there are big scratches that you haven't got out at the beginning, then going through to the finer grits isn't going to help. We need to spend the right amount on each stage. And there we go, it's a lot shinier than it was. And as I said, with polishing, you get out what you put in. So if you spend more time, it'll come even shinier. And then I always like to finish with a bit of flannel and a polishing cloth. I'm just going to apply a little bit. I only need a tiny, tiny bit to the front. Rub it on. Often my piece will go kind of blacky at this stage, and then use a nice clean bit of the cloth to shine it up. Great, so I'm happy with that. I'm going to pop my flannel away, and then I'm going to attach my piece to a chain so that I can wear it. And just a quick word on hallmarking. If you're selling silver jewellery, You do need to get it hallmarked if you're based in the UK, and different countries have different regulations for this. So you send it off to a place called the assay office, which is where you get it hallmarked. And if you're selling, then you'll need to check out the regulations on that and make sure you're covered. Great, so now I'm going to attach my jump rings to my piece. So jump rings are little circles which have a split in the middle. You can buy them or you can make them. These ones are bought ones, and I'm just using some pliers, some flat pliers to open it. I always open my jump rings back to front, never side to side, because it can stress the circular shape of it and it can actually break the piece. So open them up, and I'm just going to slide my piece through. Then next up, I need to get my chain ready. So I'm using a shop bought chain for this one because I'm using quite a fine chain. You can obviously make your own chains, but something like this would take so long to make that you tend to just use ones that are already made. Just going to go straight down the middle with some cutters. These are called flush cutters, or sometimes they're called side cutters. I'm just going to cut the middle link. Then on one side, I'm going to attach that to my jump ring. You need to make sure that the chain that you have has a hole big enough to fit over the jump ring. So a trace chain is something very fine, might not fit. So you want a chain with some links. Then I'm going to close up my jump ring using my pliers. I give it a little wiggle backwards and forwards to harden the metal a little bit. And then those clicks, when you hear those, that's a good sign it's coming together. And I'm just going to make sure when I hold it up to the light, there should be no gap. That's what I'm aiming for. And again, if you're going to be wearing this a lot and selling it and all of that, you might want to put 2 jump rings in, or you can solder the jump ring, but that's a little bit more advanced because this is a beginner's project. I want to keep it without soldering, so you can always put 2 jump rings in if that gives you a bit more peace of mind. Then I'm going to do the same on the other side. So I take another jump ring, pop it in my pliers, open up, remember front to back, not side to side. Thread it through my chain and through my necklace, and then just close it nice and tight. And when you first start using pliers and all of these tools, it can feel really fiddly, so don't beat yourself up if it's not completely natural straight away. Just keep practicing, experimenting, and you will get there. Wonderful, so there we have our silver bar necklace. Lovely project to make, to wear for yourself, to give to others. You can also do stamping on these if you want to write a message or a date or anything like that. And you can also solder pieces to them. So if you decide you like to add gemstones, you can solder on a bezel cup and do lots of things with it as your technique and your repertoire grows. So best of luck with your making. I hope this course has been useful and that you've learned a lot through doing the little projects and getting started at home. If you would like to learn more, do go and check out the website, jewellersacademy.com, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel to be updated for when we send out new videos. Best of luck with your making.